Welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. I'm your host, Bob Simon, and today we're going to talk to Roman, who was on the dark side for quite some time before coming to the light. I'm going to talk to you about transitioning from law school to defense work, what it was like. And I would like to really talk to him, and we're going to key in on rideshare cases because he defended a lot of Uber, Lyft, those type of things, and how they value things that they look out, because I know it's a very hot topic across America right now because Uber has a huge initiative for tort reform because they're claiming that they're paying too much out for their nefarious things and that it's costing consumers too much, which is all BS. But there we have it. Roman, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
So first of all, how do people reach you? Because I think people are going to have questions. So what's the easiest way to find you?
It's pretty easy over here. It's my name, Roman at justicesteam.com.
We try to keep it easy for branding purposes. So Roman, let's talk about, you went to Pepperdine Law, just like me.
The Harvard of the West is what they call it.
Nobody calls it that. But I do love it there, and it was nice. So walk us through that journey. I know you always wanted to be on this side of the delta representing human beings, but how did it come to be?
Well, I was born at a very young age, and you probably don't want to start that far back. My dad, a very gregarious, happy man. He was always in sales. I always kind of didn't want to be in sales, but I wanted to be in a position where I was client-facing, person-facing. So when I wanted to go to law school, I was like, okay, well, I want to help people. I want to be able to use what I learn in law school, whatever that may be, and help those that are in need. The unfortunate thing is that, with law school debt, with all the jobs, you kind of just get siphoned into like a defense position. The big names, they sound really cool and all of that. So I kind of was weaseled in a way into that. And my plan was always to get the experience and then take it to the other side. And I just waited for the right opportunity.
Yeah, and I always call it the golden handcuffs. And unfortunately, you're first generation lawyer as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's hard whenever you don't have like a bank account to fall back on to pursue your passion right away. There's ways to do it, and we teach a lot about that. But it's a hard decision. It's like you have to be able to pay rent.
Absolutely. And God bless my parents. They weren't any help. They were there and they supported me through it all as much as they could. But Google was my best friend, and also meeting people and actually interacting with other attorneys, because Pepperdine has a great network of people. LA in general, all the schools, but Pepperdine especially has a very tight-knit group.
Yeah, and if people are in law school, you should be out there networking. You're in LA, it's like, why do you not?
Sure, exactly.
So you worked a lot on the defense side, so you know the inner workings of rideshare, specifically Uber is one of your clients, and we're not going to go over some client-specific stuff in this episode. We stay away from those things. Unless you want to talk about it, we'll get sued later, but that's okay. And then you also did some of the other side of the fire cases too.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about both of those things to kind of figure things out, okay? So first of all, can you explain to everybody in California, if you're in an Uber crash, there's different levels of insurance or levels of was the app on? Was there a fare in the car? And then kind of how that works. And we'll talk about their angle with uninsured motorist coverage and what you see on the defense. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Educate us. Let's go, brother.
Absolutely. I think that, taking a rideshare is always a nice thing. They market it as an alternative to parking, to being tipsy while you're driving. There's a lot of great things that rideshares have done. No one knew that it would grow from this, in the early 2000s. And a lot of people don't realize that Uber doesn't even claim itself as a transportation company. It's a application. Yeah. It's actually a technical company that connects people. And that's kind of the route that they've taken really from the beginning. But also it's one of their ways that they try to abscond liability, when there's car crashes, because I'm not a techie, but I don't think apps cause, TBIs. They don't cause deaths, in that sense. So that's kind of been their route.
Yeah, that's their route. But, in reality, they're taking a percentage of each fare. Oh, and a lot of times they don't check some drivers other than do you have a license to get check a box you're on.
There have been many cases where I was on obviously their side, but I was scratching my head. How much does it really cost to do some sort of just like base background check and this or that, especially when I was working on like sex assault cases.
Yeah, and those are big. There's a lot of sex abuse, sex assault cases. We've had a few on our side. And every time it's just like, how did you not know this driver had these other issues?
Yes, and oh, well, we don't like that either. We don't like, actually, we'll go after the driver too. Yeah, we're on your side. That was kind of.
How do they pull that off?
Independent contractor. Oh my God, we didn't know, even though we didn't check into it. We didn't know he was a bad guy, even though there might be like family law stuff out there. He might have a restraining order. Like, I mean, again, go back to Google. That was one of my best friends in law school, and it still is one of my best friends now, I mean, obviously Alexis and Westlaw.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you could easily find that information. There's so many applications now that do instant background checks.
And the sad thing is that with such a huge corporation, just the cost benefit analysis of having that one driver that has this, so obviously there's a breakdown with all of those employees. Something's not happening. Just the liability skyrockets when it could be, like I said, I wasn't as deep into, the inner workings, but it seems like it was pretty simple.
And unfortunately, some states have taken the position that they are absolutely independent contractors, and Uber gets away with a lot of these things, and they drop the limits of liability. If you go through like the entire Southeast, like Uber is getting away with having like $100,000 insurance policy, and their drivers have like a $30,000 insurance policy, and they're out there making so much money on the road every day.
Absolutely. And I mean, something my dad really taught me throughout law school was you have to not think like a lawyer sometimes. You have to take off your lawyer cap and just think practically. And I mean, he went to a semester of college before him and my mom had me. And he said, well, Roman, if I have to think about it, so he's kind of a good barometer, And I would talk to him about that, and he's like, that doesn't make sense because they're on the road so much.
Yeah.
So there should be there's certain insurances that you pay by how far you drive or how many miles you drive a day. Maybe there should be something applicable to that because there's no Uber driver that's doing one trip a day.
I know. You can't that can't be your entire business model and be like, oh, we can't be responsible for it though. It's not like it's 1% or 5%. Yeah. So what are some things? So there's different levels of what triggers different types of insurance if Uber's responsible. Can you kind of go through that with us?
Sure. So it really depends on whether the driver is on the app or off the app. Sometimes in the the windshield, or they'll have stickers, Lyft sticker, Uber sticker. Sometimes they have both because obviously, you get paid as how much you drive and everything. So there's different insurance levels depending on whether they're on their way to pick up a client, to pick up a rider, they actually pick up the rider, they engage the ride when they're dropping them off, when they're going to another one. So as a rider, you don't really have to know that. You just have to know whether you're in the car, whether, it's, is this ride for Sally? Okay, cool. This ride's for Sally. There's also differences with if you have a friend come with you. So if Sally has Sue come with her, does Sue have the app? Did Sue click the box? I mean, it really gets down to like as simple as that.
Yeah. And so if Uber hits a car and there's somebody in the Uber ride, Uber's like higher level policy checks in because they have a client in the car, right? And the person that's in the car, the client, also has rights against Uber who caused that crash.
Yes.
Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So whenever Uber has either app updates or just updates to all their liability, they make you check a box. And there's many times where we would have to go into the app and figure out, like, did they check that box? Did they consent to this? Did they basically sign away their ability to sue us in this situation?
Yeah, so Uber can actually, or Lyft, they can have an update that says you click this box that says you have to go to arbitration with us if you are under our quote unquote insurance policy since you're in the car.
Absolutely. And it's a contract of adhesion. If you don't click it, you can't use it. So 99.9% of people, I'm just going to click it. I mean, I'm at a bar, I've had a few drinks, like I just need to get home or whatever. So it makes sense, from a consumer standpoint, but it's kind of scary, when you think, we do this a lot with we do it with everyone, but with something as simple as this, just trying to get home, click on it.
Yes, but there's an insurance policy. So they say there's 3 people in the car. One person calls the Uber, two other people come in with them. It could be a scenario where the 2 of the folks that didn't push the app might have ability to sue the Uber driver that causes a crash, but the one person that pushed the app might have to go to arbitration.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
And that's where it gets hairy. And also with multiple people, of course, if a car gets T-boned on the driver's side, and there's 3 people in the back, one person's going to get the brunt of that damage. Yeah. So you can imagine the scenarios of that person can only go to arbitration, and they have so much more heavy meds. Maybe they hit their head on the glass, something like that. So I got really good at figuring out all of those scenarios, working on because really they're just pixels, I got really good until I didn't want to be really good at it, really viewing these things as, okay, well, it's just pixels on the screen, it's a person, that's the easy part about having one client, as this conglomerate instead of individuals.
So you have how many Uber cases do you think you've worked on? The defense
in the triple digits, really pushed a lot of them to settlement, mediation. Because I was on trial team in law school, I loved advocacy. I mean, that was really my kind of my storyline was I loved arguing for work, not in my personal life. I'm a pushover, but in work, it was great. So I always pushed cases as much as possible, taking as many depots as need be, doing the research I needed to do to figure things out. And I got a couple pretty close, at least I thought, until they're like, okay, just give him this amount of money. And I'm like, oh my God, I did all this work for what, Anyway, just to give him the policy or whatever. But yeah, it's so easy on that side just because you have one client to deal with. And my clients specifically were attorneys that went to work in-house. It wasn't like an adjuster or anything. It was other attorneys.
Wow. But there's situations, so if there's an Uber or Lyft driver that has the app on, but they're not connected to a customer yet, there's a different layer of insurance. Yes. How does that work?
Yeah. So, and that's all stuff that since we're all, connected via the app, you can see that. So there's less insurance, obviously, if they're searching for a ride or searching for, someone to get connected to take on a ride. And then once they initiate, there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, different rideshare companies couch it differently. But there's kind of searching for a ride, on the way to a ride.
So searching for a ride is like phase 1, app on, searching for a ride?
Yeah.
And then phase 2 is connected?
I'm going to go pick up.
Connected but not picked up yet. And then phase 3 is
in the car until you get to your destination.
And there's different insurance layers for each one of those.
Yeah. So practically speaking, if you're taking a ride share, obviously if you click the ride and it never comes in because they got an act, like you didn't get hurt. Obviously you might be late to your date or late to your trip or something. But it gets hairy, and I worked on a few cases like this when the ride share operator, the driver, will have 2 phones, one Lyft, one Uber. Don't even get me started on, are they watching a soap opera on one? I guess they're independent contractors.
What's wild is we have a lot of truck driver crash cases that we have. The truck drivers are watching porn. It's like, really? I mean, it's wild. I guess it's a thing. They're getting bored, but it's just we had one big crash case, and I think we settled for over $30 million on this at the end. But the driver that caused it, we found out, was watching The Departed. He's just sitting there watching Departed, just runs a red light. What are people doing? Great movie, yes, but my gosh.
Which, if you want to take it onto a higher level, it's something we drive every day. And also these people that drive 8 hours, 10 hours a day, you get so comfortable doing it. For years, I was fearful of flying just because even though flying's much safer than driving, I just was driving every day. So you can imagine if your job is driving. I mean, we're lucky because we love our jobs, but most people don't love their jobs. If I have to drive for 12 hours in gridlock traffic.
Oh, that'd be terrible. My dad was a truck driver, and radio podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
talking to his family. I mean, what else can you do? Like you're sitting in the same position and just driving.
Yeah, which is crazy. So, and at least truck drivers have training.
Oh, that's true. And I'm of the mindset of, do you remember whenever we had those early navigation systems in the car and you couldn't touch the screen or do anything while it was moving?
Yeah.
Why does that not exist? Like, to me, it's like you're allowing this for profit. I mean, you could easily handicap it so you can't exactly.
You're weighing.
Yeah, you're weighing.
You can't be getting your next ride if you can't use it. You know, if you had to stop every time, God forbid you stop, you drop off person one, and then you search for, God forbid.
God forbid you do something safe. All right, let's just turn the page a little bit. We'll talk briefly about when the fire loss cases happen, you were on the defense, kind of how on the other side of the table, how are those evaluated? How do you deal with them? What are you looking for to eventually compensate folks if they were responsible? You don't have to name who the client was. Obviously.
Oh, no. Yeah. It's a lot of the same. It's okay. You just have to, it's dollars and cents. It's knocking it down. It's also, okay, like you bought a pair of shoes 2 years ago. So how much use did you get out of them? You know, They were $100. Now it really just becomes a number system, and I didn't last very long in that job, but it becomes more of like,
so they're trying to just like depreciate everybody's personal property and those things. Oh
yeah, absolutely. And also I was just talking to one of my colleagues out there who's working on a mediation brief. And he was talking about how he really wanted to kind of zhuzh it up and, you know, where's the emotional side of it, which now I get to do that fun stuff. Yeah. I used to have to like look past that and be like, well, I don't care about this. Like, well, you know, this is just a plaintiff's attorney being, you know, over the top or whatever, as if that's not their job, you know. But it was very silly how it was really us versus them type of thing. And I couldn't think about it on a personal level because
you're supposed to be a robot. You can't.
If I lost my home, are you kidding me? Like, yeah. You know, so it's pretty crazy. And even with the recent fires, now helping some close friends navigate the process, and now it's like the first time I'm like allowed to feel, you know, because it's not my job anymore. It's my first time that I can actually like feel like a human, I guess, in that way, and realize kind of the devastation.
So if for people that are watching or listening that were affected by the fires, what are things that they should be doing, knowing that what you do on the defense, to make sure that they are getting maximum compensation if somebody else is responsible? It's
really important to go through all avenues. So what I mean is go through your insurance company, kind of go through all of the hoops that they are asking you to go through, because it's really only then they can be like, okay, well, if something's not lining up, this is where an attorney comes in. This is where I need extra help. This is where I need a public adjuster, whatever that may be. Because it's easy as from the insurance side to be like, hey, we tried to help you as much as we could, but you didn't even try. You just went straight to litigation. What? So even though time and time again, you know, insurance companies prove that you as their insured need someone else to advocate for you, even though that they're supposed to be doing that. It's actually very beneficial to go through those avenues to kind of show, hey, I crossed my T's, I dotted my I's, you still suck, so now I need someone else to jump in.
Yeah, let's talk about the non-insurance ones. If there's a third-party responsible public utility like we're seeing in the Eaton fires, what should those folks be doing to make sure they get maximum compensation for what happened to them?
Yeah, again, there's a lot of resources out there and a lot of people that are trying to help. I know Pepperdine's a really big help in that way, you know, really big on public service because, yeah, when you don't have insurance, unfortunately, you don't have insurance to get. So, but there's other avenues that you can find through that, especially with legal aid and all. Yeah,
well, I mean, if there's a third party responsible, so like Edison, so what should those folks be doing that were in, you know, Altadena, and Pasadena areas, like from documenting? I mean, does it helpful for them to make itemized lists? Like on the defense side, what are you looking at to see if they crossed their T's and dotted their I's?
Gotcha. It's a lot of the same stuff. If you were insured, you just don't have an insurance adjuster that's going to help you. It's using photographs is a big thing because you sit on your couch every day, but do I even remember where I got my couch? You know, so showing all of those things and all the trinkets, like it's devastating really, because until you think about it, you don't realize how many little things you lose in your home. So doing it as best as you can to itemize everything. But also hiring a public adjuster is extremely important, especially if you have a burn down, because like I don't know how big my house is, off the top of my head, but public adjusters are able to size your house, ask you the shingles, you figure out like the minutia of it, so you can add up the value and get full compensation eventually from that third party that caused it for your home.
Well, we've been talking for 22. Well, this is good. We talked for a long time, Roman. Well, again, Roman at justicesteam.com. If you have any questions, reach out to him. And, we're happier on the side of the Delta now, my friend. It's good that you're going to be able to actually be passionate about your child work and helping human beings rather than being that mean person on the other side. Thank you for watching this or listening to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. Again, go to www.justicesteamnetwork.com or see YouTube or whatever. Roman, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks for having me. So good.